to that type of a council, that's the way it's going to be.
Okay, Bill Kangas has a comment too.
Yeah, I'm going ward head on the task force. I'm gonna like that, and hopefully we'll see what comes out of the task force. But I believe I just love the people to vote. I supported the referendum on the river district. You know, let's let the people decide. They're our boss, and if any chance they can get to vote, let them vote. So I like that. One thing I'll say about that, my wife reminded me several times, she's been here a long time, that over 50 years ago, she had spent a lot of time out there, and she knew about all the creosote from the logs and all that had been buried in the ground. And the trigger there was when they bought it from NOMS, there was I believe $68,000 fee for cleanup of any contamination. So there was something known there, but I don't think it really got dug into, because you could have went back to some of these people that have been here a long time and talked to them and found out what had happened during the hops field. And there's logs buried out there and creosote tanks buried out in that ground. They're all over out there. So when they start investigating this, we're going to maybe find out the contamination is a lot worse than we think. We don't know yet, but there's still got to be a lot more work done. But this task force will come out with some solutions for us, and I think it's a great idea to get into task force, votes, however you can do it, and look things over before you do it. Just don't go along with whatever somebody tells you. Get in and investigate, drive, go out there and look at it. So that's mine.
Rob has a comment.
Yeah, agreeing with the three fellows who spoke before me, for me, when this became, I guess, an issue that I actually had to focus on as a counselor, it was when the city staff came to us and said, the next little piece of what we have to do to move forward here, I believe it was in the $60,000 range. We need to spend yet another $60-something thousand for the next little piece, and to move this property along. Now, it's a beautiful piece of property that has great potential, and I'll tell you what, if I had known for sure that that next $60,000 piece would have allowed us to have that property realize its full potential, I would have said, sure, $60,000 to take care of that property, bring it to fruition, absolutely, bargain, no problem. But it wasn't that. That $60,000 might have been the first of 10 more $60,000s, or much worse than that, depending on who you want to believe. The staff has said that they've spent $145,000 so far on the property, on not maintenance, but on investigations as to the cleanup. I've heard that we've spent, and I believe it's an accurate figure, over $200,000 on the property, just on the interest to carry it, just to hold that property. So we've spent, and there's other figures that are floating around in the many hundreds of thousands of dollars as to what that property has cost since we bought it. So for me as a counselor to say, hey, just $67,000 more and we can have a finished product, I would have said yeah. But one more small step down a path that we may or may not want to go down, I want to see the big picture first. And that's what the task force is supposed to help us with, is to give us a big picture as to where we're going to go with that. Or I shouldn't even say where we're going to go. We haven't asked them for direction. We just like to know what the status is, where we are now in real time, so that we can then get an idea of the options, because the options are different depending on the levels of pollution. Certain types of pollution have to be capped by concrete, which might mean a tennis court or a basketball court, but not a soccer field. Some types of pollution you might be able to have green grass with kids lounging on it if it's cleaned up properly, and other types of pollution are much more limited. So we need to know actually what's out there. We need to get a big picture, we need to get a broad picture, and I think that's the only way that I personally can move forward with confidence and spend more taxpayer dollars, knowing that I've got a potential end of the taxpayer dollars that we'll have to spend out there. I have to see that first to have confidence.
Okay, this is regarding transparency. And again, whoever wants to answer, 1, 2, 3, or 4, you can do this. In regard to transparency, how much taxpayer money has been used during the pursuit of the firing of Frazier, including severance package and special meetings? And how much money has the council saved since they've been in office? That's kind of two questions there, but I'll read it again. All right, anybody want to take a stab or try to answer that?
Double whammy.
How much taxpayer money has been used during the pursuit of the firing of David Frazier, including severance packages and special benefits?
I'll take
Okay, Mark.
I'll take the toughest one. I'll take the
Someone's got to stab.
unfortunately, the termination of the city manager has a severance package of about $195,000. And believe me, that's a tough pill to swallow when you're as conservative as I am. Unfortunately, the contract that the ex-city manager had was a lifetime. It had no end to it. I've been questioned many times as why didn't you wait until you could do your evaluation and then assuming the contract would end, or it wouldn't have mattered. The evaluation had no bearing on anything.
There was no.
That you could do.
There was no end date.
There was an evaluation, but there's no ending date. And I have the contract right here for anybody that wants to look at it. It had no ending date, and even worse than that, the severance package actually goes up every year. Well, every day actually, but every year it goes up and gets worse and worse and worse. So ultimately, if he lived long enough, it'd probably be cheaper just to keep him on the payroll even if he wasn't here anymore. So those were tough decisions to make, believe me, and they were evaluated. I'm assuming there's, because of all the legal problems that again, I can't stress enough that we tried to forego. We tried to work out an agreement, which in this process happens as often as not. The only way for the city to end the relationship with that city manager was through termination. There was no other way. And his contract we inherited, but believe me, it's $200,000 is a hard pill to swallow. So somebody else can comment on the other part.
Ward?
Yes, the charter does say very clearly that the city manager serves at the pleasure of the majority of the city council. And that's the whole treatment that they give it. It's that simple. He serves at the pleasure of the majority of the council. And, as Mark alluded to, that basically he has a lifetime contract, in essence, with no end date. And that actually the cost of the severance will continue to increase as his salary increases. And his salary, actually, he was hired less than 4 years ago at, I believe, $99,000. And currently, I believe, his salary 3 years later, I believe, is around $147,000 plus benefits. And the benefit packages are, as you know, substantial. Eugene, I understand, went through 5 city managers in a period of 8 years. It's not unusual for a city council to when they come in to have to change out an administrator, to change a staff. They need somebody that has the trust and confidence of the elected body. And if that doesn't exist, there's a problem. And so I guess I look at it as a severance package of $195,000. But if we have an administrator that has the trust and confidence of the majority of the council, that is willing to carry out the directives of the council instead of undermine them or have their own agenda, how much will we save in the long run as a city?
Anybody else want to comment on that? Both do. Okay. Bill, you go first, then Rob.
Okay. I think, did you mention in